What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and DFS home here at fakepigskin.com. It's Thursday. It's DFS time. We're going to break down the DraftKings slate. And here to help me do it, it's the real Bobby Adcock. What's up, Bobby?
What's up, Kyle, man? Just another week in fall, winter now in Michigan. It's snowing outside, and it's dark and it's cold. And the only thing I have to look forward to is my weekend of football. So I'm excited to discuss all this with you and get your thoughts.
I am very excited to break it down as well. I was out of town last weekend, so I did catch some action. I noticed that a lot of our plays did work out very, very nicely, but it will be nice to be on the couch enjoying some games and seeing how this week's breakdown goes. Traditionally, we are really focused on the Sunday slate here, but with the barn burner that is Rams Chiefs, an over under of 63, a wild game ahead. I guess I felt like we should at least talk a little bit about it off the top here. So, when you have a game like this, we have 63 points, obviously, so we expect some scoring here. How much exposure do you want to this game? Is there a point where it's too much exposure? Is there lineups that you need to have at least some exposure to this game, even if it's Sammy Watkins or Josh Reynolds or some of the ancillary pieces?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. Maybe you disagree. I think just to make uh, the salary cap flexible, I think Reynolds is probably the most reasonable call because he opens a lot of things up for you. But yeah, I mean, you're gonna play Gurley, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and I think you're gonna probably play Mahomes for sure. You know?
So at quarterback, is Mahomes worth the $700 difference from Jared Goff? Jared Goff will be at home, and he will be without Cooper Kupp, who tore his ACL. So that a little bit of here, a little bit of there. Um, while I expect Goff to still perform pretty well. Is $700 enough to say, yep, I need to do that most of the time or all the time?
Oh yeah, I think it is. I think it's. I don't think it's that big of a difference actually, price wise. So I think it's definitely worth it. The Rams touchdowns, they tend to lean on Gurley inside of 10 on the goal line. So definitely going Mahomes is my quarterback.
Yep, I think I'm with you there. I think it's worth spending the extra couple $100 to lock him in. And man, if I could find a way to get Mahomes and Gurley and then kind of piece together the rest of my lineup, I think I'll be pretty happy. But yeah, I definitely want exposure, even if it's marginal exposure. But that is the nice thing about playing this Sunday only slate is you can kind of avoid this game and just sit back and watch them run up and down. So I will have some Sunday Monday. I will have some only Sunday. And on DK, I love the Monday Thursday slate, and I might go wild with a little Monday Thursday, and I might just for gigs, complete or avoid most of the Chiefs, and go straight to that Thursday game. Maybe mix in a little Josh Reynolds, just for a little exposure, but maybe it's one of these games where we expect 63 points and we get 36 points. And then I'm feeling pretty good about the rest of my lineup. But yeah, so with that said, let's break down our favorite plays at the position and kind of what we're looking at. And we'll, as always, we'll get out of here with a lineup for you. So if you're starting at quarterback, where is your eyes going this week?
Yeah, so with 6 buys and with Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson playing as we speak, quarterback position is kind of interesting. I think obviously it's priced correctly with Drew Brees is the top price. It's 6,500. I think he's no question number one with a bullet. Um, and I think you can make a case for him on the goal line, how they use Taysom Hill sometimes. Um, you know, if you don't like that or that scares you off a little bit, I can understand that. And if I'm kind of reaching away from him, my first choice is a Mr. Cam Newton in Detroit. Um, Lions defense has been just vulnerable to everything, whether it's in the air or the ground. And, Cam does everything in the air and on the ground as well in the red zone. So I think Cam is my first choice if I'm pivoting off of Brees at 6,200. And my next choice, we talked a little bit on the gambling podcast, was the Indianapolis Colts. And my next choice would be Andrew Luck at 5,900. And Kyle, I know your Titans. I know, but I'll tell you right now, what I've been doing in a couple, specifically in one season-long league that I've had luck this year, is I've been continuing to get like scared off in these matchups where I'm going, I'm gonna bench him this week and kind of saying off. Last week, I played Fitzpatrick over Luck because I just thought matchup is there. I'm going to go Fitzpatrick. And obviously did not work out. And let me just give you Luck's touchdown numbers since week 3. Okay? So we're starting in week 4. Touchdowns 4, 3, 4, 4, 3, 3. At this point, to me, he's just, I don't care what matchup he's in. I don't care, what planet the game's even played on. It doesn't really matter at this point. Especially last week, he proved with Jacksonville. A defense still playing really good. Another 3 touchdowns really early on in the game too. Not playing catch up. He's back. He's legit. He's the guy that he was before, and maybe even a little bit better. So, 5,900. I like Luck too.
Yeah, it's definitely a play. I feel like it's one that a lot of people won't be on. So if it works out, I think you'll definitely cash a lot of places. I'm with you. It starts with Drew Brees for me, 6,500. I like the Cam pivot. And maybe I will do that in some more like GPP style, but Brees is my guy. If I want to save money, I like Dak Prescott a lot at 5,200 against those Falcons. He's progressing. He's looking much better. The run game was nice. And Amari Cooper seems to be helping there. If not either of those, I don't hate Mariota, but I'd rather, if I'm between Mariota and Prescott, I'm going Prescott all the time. So yeah, I think it's either spend up at Brees at 6,500 or drop down to 5,200 and Dak Prescott.
No.
No.
If you're spending down, it's someone with the first name Eli.
Ooh, 5,200. I like it. Am I crazy to suggest Bobby Blake Bortles this week?
Yes, you are. And the reason being that I think this is actually a really tough matchup for Jacksonville, just because Pittsburgh has been very good against the run, and I think they can actually have potential to take away Fournette a little bit to the point to make Bortles uncomfortable and put him in third and long situations where he's just not very good. So, yes, you are crazy. What you should do, if you're gonna get really dirty and really nasty here and kind of go really dirt, you and no one else will stop me from my Josh Rosen stack this week. So
I feel like we keep throwing out the Josh Rosen stack. I feel like this is the Josh Rosen stack podcast. We need to change our name. But I couldn't agree with you more. I love Rosen, and if you really want to get dirty, 4,800. Baltimore is got a really juicy matchup. We don't know who's starting, but if it's RG3 or Lamar Jackson at 4,700, do you want to get even more dirty?
Oh yeah, no, I'll get plenty dirty. Look, if Flacco's really out, is there a real chance they're not going to just go? Well, I guess I. How could they not start Lamar Jackson?
Supposedly he's been dealing with a stomach bug, and that's why he didn't practice today. It could also just be a big, look over here, we're going to play RG3, and then all of a sudden Lamar's your starting quarterback. But
so even in the game where they pulled Flacco at Carolina, Lamar Jackson went in. So
yeah.
that's to me, it's just like, okay, this is their guy they're grooming. So I don't know. Yes, but yes, look, if that situation arises, Lamar Jackson will be played in some lines for me. Yes.
Let's shift our focus. Let's talk running back, and let me know where you start to focus. I mean, Alvin Kamara, 8,200 is amazing. McCaffrey against your Lions at 8,000. David Johnson, 7,500. Like there is so much tasty at running back this week. Where do your eyes draw you to initially?
So I think I have this kind of set up. I think I have this board set up well, and I think my question to you is: do you consider Leonard Fournette to be a clear-cut number one-ish choice amongst like the James Connors? Like the same way you view Connor, the same way you view Mixon.
No.
You consider
no. He's not even close for me.
Okay, so then what that would mean is that, and I think I kind of agree, just because this specific week I think Pittsburgh is a tough matchup. So that would mean that there's 8 running backs that are kind of, I think, the clear-cut run RB1s, let's call them, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me this week, the way wide receiver is set and the other tight end, I think you have to get 2 of those guys in the top 8 if you're playing this week. And I think my favorites, going along with my Josh Rosen stack, David Johnson at home against the Raiders, who I think we both agree is in a blatant, the first NFL blatant tank mode. So I love David Johnson at 75. It is if I'm paying up there, and I think as well, Saquon Barkley is kind of my other guy who, that matchup with Tampa, I think he's my pick as the top running back this week.
I don't disagree. I think Barkley is interesting to me. But like I've seen this Giants team on the road. I watched them against the Niners, and Barkley was fine. Don't get me wrong. But just because he's playing a bad defense doesn't necessarily mean Eli is going to have this ship going in the right direction. So, it might.
They're at home against Tampa.
Oh yeah, well okay, yeah, you're right. They are at home, so that helps a little bit. But if I'm leading, expensive running backs, I'm going to spend up a little bit more. I'm going Alvin Kamara at 8,200. I'm going Ezekiel Elliott at 8,500. That's where my attention goes almost immediately.
Okay, I'm not gonna, I think I think sometimes with these players we're comparing really good to really good. It's just
which Maserati do you want to buy today?
Yeah, so okay, so it's fine. So I like Barkley. I think if I'm picking up, so in the other choices are fine. So let's move on. What are you seeing if you go below 7,000?
I like
the 6,000s range.
I like Deion Lewis at 4,800 against Indianapolis. He's been the workhorse, and as long as the Titans are in games, he gets plenty of volume. I like Phillip Lindsay coming off of the bye week. I just think he's been really solid. Tevin Coleman is a guy I just can't figure out what to do with. Like I was in on him and he was really underwhelming, and then I was out on him and he had his big game against Washington, and is he somebody that interests you this week at home versus Dallas?
Yes, he does. I think honestly there was almost no one in these. Well, there's not that many running backs really this week, but there was no one in the $6,000 range that really I looked at and loved a lot. I think Coleman actually is a little bit mispriced just because of his situation, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like he's in a good offense, a very good offense, that kind of laid a bit of a dud last week, and who's at home, they've been lights out at home as an offense this year. So yes, Coleman to me, if I wasn't spending up in that $7,000 range, I would skip over the entire 6,000s and I'd go right to Coleman. He'd be my first choice because I think he's still in a very dynamic offense, getting a ton of volume, and yeah, he's gonna have some iffy games here and there. And that whole offense is kind of like we talked about last week. We were on the Falcons. Look, it just didn't work out. It was a bad week. I think they rebound this week. I think they have a better week offensively at home. I believe who was the defensive linebacker for Dallas? Is he still out?
Sean Lee, yeah, he's out, but Leighton Vander Esch is there, and he's playing amazing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think if I'm not spending up at the elite of elite, the top 6, 7 guys, and it might even be 5. It might. Let's see, 6. So it'd be David Johnson, McCaffrey, Barkley, Melvin Gordon, Kamara, and Elliott. If I'm not spending up with one of those 6, I'm diving way down. Coleman's the first guy I'm interested in, but for the most part, I'm going even below there. I love Dion Lewis. I really like Alex Collins this week at 4,400, especially if Lamar or RG. That facial expression tells you it all. If Lamar or RG3 play, like the running quarterback has consistently helped these the running backs feast, and I think I have real questions about where Cincinnati is as a team, and I think they could run the ball well this week. Is there anybody even lower than the guys we talked about that interests you?
Yeah, so I think in the forward range, I agree with you on Lewis. I think he's one of the best plays in the $4,000 range. If I go beyond that, I think Lamar Miller still he holds that feature back role in Houston. There is no threat to him at all, and I think that they're coming off a bye. They're going. We talk about the betting podcast that you're kind of liking Houston. I think it's actually a pretty it's a stay away from me, but I don't mind the play, and I think I don't trust this Washington team at all. So I think Miller with that feature back roll still at 4,600. I think he's one of those guys in that range who has potential to have just in terms of volume, he can have a big game.
Yep.
And then beyond that, Theo Riddick, I continue to like. I mentioned him in kind of the running back rankings thing we do on Fake Pigskin last week. I think with Tate gone from the Lions, he's continuing to – he lines up in the slot. He comes out of the backfield all the time. Like he's a lot more involved. If he's healthy, he's just been a lot more involved with the Lions. They're a dumpster fire in terms of an offense, but he's still on the field a lot. He's a guy, if you're looking at guys in that range, I'd like him. Completely
agree. Let's shift our focus. Let's talk wideouts. And I think if you're spending up this week at wideout, it's like Michael Thomas, it's Odell, it's Nuke, and then you kind of just start diving towards the bottom. Is there anybody else in the upper echelon that you're finding yourself put in lineups this week?
No, I think the top upper guys are pretty straightforward. I think there's probably 5 or 6 of them. I think and before we get into like the next guys, I did have a question about another running back, and maybe you can answer this. Can you explain to me why Rod Smith is $4,500?
That's a very interesting question. It feels like maybe Atlanta is that bad against the run where they think Dallas is going to try and run. Maybe Does DraftKings know something we don't know?
You cannot explain. Though that's the thing. So as soon as Zeke has a hamstring injury, I'm just gonna start cracking up. So there is no reason. You can't explain it. No one can explain it. So anyway, we'll move on. Talking about receivers. Look, I think the upper echelon is what it is. We know who the studs are, but I think what's more interesting is because I think running back there's so much uncertainty when you get past the top like 6 or 8 guys. I think receivers are where you want to find like the $6,000 to $5,000 range. I think there's actually a ton of guys who make a ton of sense to play this week. First one I'll say is Keenan Allen at 6,700. I love Alshon Jeffrey against New Orleans, who obviously we both agree they're going to have to be throwing the ball a ton. He's at 6,300, and he's proven to have monster games still this year with Carson Wentz. And just a couple more in the $6,000 range I'll mention is Emmanuel Sanders at 6,200 and Ty at 6,100 at home, who really hasn't had like a vintage Ty game yet this year. Who I think we can both agree he'll have one eventually. So
Yeah.
I think he's undervalued. What say you?
Yeah, no, I'm in lockstep with you there. John Brown is interesting to me. I know the quarterback situation is a mess, but at 5,900 against this defense, and if I'm looking at Lamar and John Brown stacks, I really like that. And if Flacco plays, then I'm
That's
good.
dirty.
Hey, I like to get it real dirty. I like Sterling Shepard at 5,300 if you're not paying up for Odell. I do want a piece of that passing game. Corey Davis, I know hasn't been great, but he had a monster game, back-to-back 10-target weeks. I think he's another guy at 5,600 that makes a ton of sense. Just going down, I mean, right at the 5,000, Crabtree at 4,800, Dante Moncrief 4,900, Demaryius Thomas 4,900. Are you interested in any of those guys?
So, not necessarily specifically those guys. I would say my $5,000 range guys. I agree with you wholeheartedly on Sterling Shepard. I think he has that. He's proven to have that upside where he has those crazy like 10 catch games or 5 for 140 games. He has that in him in that offense, and they have a great matchup. So I love Shepard in the position he's in with Tampa. So I agree there. The other two guys in the $5,000 ranges I like is continuing with my Cardinal stack loving Fitzgerald at 56, and I think Amari Cooper at 54. At Atlanta, just a defense that continues to struggle in their secondary and give up a lot of big plays and yards. I think Cooper's in a spot where he could have he could have a vintage Amari Cooper week that he's proven to have. So I like Cooper there. If I go down to fours, are we ready to move to fours?
Yeah, absolutely. Hit me with it.
So fours, my guys are Chris Godwin. I think that teams are starting to catch on with O.J. Howard and Mike Evans, that they're trying to take them away. And I think you saw last week Godwin was a big beneficiary. Adam Humphries has been a big beneficiary.
So Adam Humphries had 3 targets last week. Prior to that, 8 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets. Obviously, Godwin broke out in a big way. Do you trust Godwin to do that consistent? Like, is that what the new normal is, or do you think it was just a weird week where the matchup worked out and Humphries will kind of get some of that work again this week?
Well, I think this is what the deal is. I think it depends on the way teams attack them. I actually read a kind of a quick article this week about kind of what happened in that game, and basically, teams were trying to take away Howard and Evans, and depending on how they do that, what it opens up is things over the middle, underneath with a wide receiver, whether it be Godwin or Humphries. And last week it happened to be Jacquizz Rodgers out of the backfield, and they kind of exclusively went with Rodgers in the backfield coming out. And they're a pass-first team, as we know. So I think depending on how teams go about their double teaming, we don't know. It is a speculative guess. You don't know. We're not in these coaching meetings. So yeah, I think you're going to see Godwin, Humphries kind of rotating these production weeks, and then I think Rodgers actually could be moving forward a much more prevalent person in the passing game because it is a pass first team in general, and he's the best receiving option, or at least has proven to be to this point this season on the backfield. So, do I expect it to be consistent? No, absolutely not. But yes, one of those guys is going to benefit from all the attention that Evans and Howard gets, and Jackson will just remain that constant deep threat that they take shots with.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. Last week was very frustrating for that game, kind of in general, with the Bucs getting in the red zone 5 times and not being able to get touchdowns. So much annoying stuff. Question: Michael Gallup, 3,700. Obviously, great matchup. Obviously, last week he only had 3 targets, but 11 targets the 2 weeks prior. Do you think we could, maybe pivot off of Amari, save $1,500, 2,000, and get Michael Gallup in your lineup?
No, I don't.
No. Okay, good. Well, then we'll move on.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, very, very straightforward.
No.
I also don't hate Traquan Smith at 4,000 as a pivot off of Michael Thomas.
I would prefer DJ Moore. How about
DJ Moore? A little like it felt like 2 weeks ago. Everyone, all of fantasy Twitter was all about him having a big game. Didn't really happen. Maybe this is the week. I kind of like that call quite a bit. Any other receivers you want to hit on before we move to tight end?
No, sir.
All right, let's talk tight end, and let's see where you're spending your money. So, obviously, we like spending money at running back. We pivoted off of elite running backs by saving money at receiver. Are we spending up at tight end at all, or are we going to try and save some money there too?
Well, I mean, the way it's structured this week, Howard's been, Ertz has been a beast.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to fit him in. He's there's no question he's number one. And I think he's worth it. I don't doubt that at all. Especially in this matchup where we both agree they're going to be throwing the ball and having to keep pace with the Saints. So that's all good and fine. But just because of the way we're spending a little bit and the way I tend to spend, my top option, I think, is we just talked about double teaming, but I still think Howard is very OJ Howard. That is, I think he's very matchup proof. Had a quiet game last week against, I think, a better, above average defense. We'll just call it. I think even if the Giants tried to execute a double team at times, they're just probably not going to do very well. So they're just not a good team. So I think Howard rebounds nicely this week with a big game. So I like Howard at 4,900. If you look at Austin Hooper's lines over the course of the season, even if he's not getting yards, he has some pretty massive catch numbers. So I think his 4,500 price is justified, especially in again, they're at home. I think we both agree and both like that offense at home. So Hooper's there. And then I'll say this is that as much as I love the Cardinals this week, and I keep slurping all over the Josh Rosen stack that I am enamored with, the Raiders have a ton of issues with their receivers in being injury plagued. Jordy Nelson is questionable. Martavis Bryant is out. He's been ruled out. And the one consistency in that pass catching offense has been Jared Cook. And he's at 3,900. And I think there's, even though as much as I don't love this offense at all, hey, he's pretty consistent and has proven to have pretty decent upside as well. So him at 3,900 is pretty intriguing.
Yeah. I mean, this is the matchup where if they're going to do something, he would be this week. If I'm spending at tight end, I'm either going all the way up and I'm doing Ertz, or I'm going all the way down. The names that pop off the page for me are Jeff Hireman, who before the bye week had 11 targets, caught 10 for 83 yards. I think this is another good spot. And if you want to get real dirty, James O'Shaughnessy.
He's on my list. He's on my
He
list.
$2,600. He missed 2 games with a hip injury. Also had a bye week in there. Returned last week against the Colts. 6 targets, 5. He's not going to be a big yardage guy, but I think if Jacksonville can get in close, he could have a shot at getting a touchdown or 2. And at $2,600, ton of upside, very minimal downside. It makes lineups work really well.
And I think the important thing is with a guy like O'Shaughnessy is that, look, when you play a guy like that, the best thing is like he has the floor, right? Like he's not going to get nothing, right? He's going to get you something, and that's really what you want. You want to just make sure you're not going to get a dud. Like for example, I've been leaning on this Michael Roberts, flag for the last like 3 or 4 weeks, and it's just not. Just talk me out of it, Kyle. Don't let me do it anymore.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
It's bad. And there's a guy like O'Shaughnessy's just sitting there, and look, even though he's not, he's not going to blow up and give you some monster game like 6 for 102 touchdowns. No, but that he's going to get you, 3, 4, 5 catches, 20, 30, 40 yards. It's going to happen. And because of his involvement, he has some upside where, yes, you could be on the goal line, like you said, and get you, maybe he can mix in a touchdown. Like, that's the important thing, I think, with those dart throws is like, hey, there's a nice floor with him. So I like that play a lot.
Yep. And it really makes the rest of your lineup work. Any other tight ends you want to throw out before we talk defense?
What about your boy, Jonnu? Is it time?
I really want to be on board. It's just the volume isn't there, and that scares me. 3 targets, 2 targets, 3 targets.
Steadily kind of increase a little bit.
Yeah. I just like he's cheap enough where he could legitimately have a 6 catch, 85 yard, 2 or 3 touchdown kind of game where he really makes a big difference. But he also could kind of underwhelm, but at $2,600 or $2,700, he's not going to kill you. So it's fine if you want to take that risk. If you want, so I guess it's just if you want the upside with a little bit lower of a floor, I think Jonnu is the way to go. I think if you want just some safety with maybe a 4 catch, maybe finds the end zone, I think O'Shaughnessy save $100 and go that way.
Agreed.
All right, let's talk defense because for me, this should be a quick conversation. You take Arizona 3,100 at home versus the Raiders. You plug them in your lineup and you move on.
I would agree. That was my top choice, 3,100. My $2,000 ranges are Steelers, who I've talked about, and I had them on the betting podcast. The Panthers.
Yep, I was just looking at that.
Against my Lions, who have been a total train wreck at 2,800. And if you're going to punt defense, I think the most logical one is the Saints. Let's just say they get out to a big lead. They're pitting their ears back against an overwhelmed offense. I think the Saints make some sense at that range of 2,100.
So if I'm going stupid cheap, I think Broncos at 2,000. Like I said in the betting podcast, you guys should go listen to that to see who I'm on the Chargers. But at 2,000, this defense has so many playmakers. Phillip Rivers can throw the ball to the other team, and it could be an ugly day. So I don't hate that. And these are more for GPP. If you're doing cash, I think Cardinals are the way to go. I also don't hate the Giants at home against the Fitzmagic. We've seen the wheels come off in a really, really ugly way, and it wasn't great last week. If you tell me that it's another 4 interception game, the ball's all over the field, the Giants make plays at home, and we're talking about Jameis next week, that would not shock me one bit. So if you want to look at really cheap defenses, I think that's the way to go.
Nice. I don't have a problem with any of that. Agree.
So as we do here, we hit you with our favorite lineup for the week. And Bobby, I gotta say, I love my lineup this week.
Are
Uh,
you going to be a millionaire?
I feel like I could be a cash money millionaire and do really well this week. Has upside, has a little bit of financial savings here and there. I've spent every single dollar. And if you would like, you can go first. Otherwise, I will take the T.
Take it off. Tee it off.
I will start off with Dakota Prescott as my quarterback. Dak at 5,200, I think is a great play to save some money against Atlanta. If I'm playing Dak, I'm playing Zeke with him. I think that's an interesting way to go. I think both of these guys can run all over the Falcons. I think Prescott has 2 to 3 touchdowns. I think Zeke could have 2 to 3 touchdowns. I'm hoping for 500, 600 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns between the pair. I'm also going Alvin Kamara as one of my studs, 8,200. My receivers is where I save money. I go Sterling Shepard, I go Corey Davis, and I go Traquan Smith. I go O'Shaughnessy at tight end. I put David Johnson in my flex, and I go with that Cardinals defense. And I love doing a little running back with the defense stack. That means the defense is playing well. It means the running back's probably getting a lot of volume in a close game. And with the way David's kind of been involved more in the passing game, I feel great about him at 7,500. So that is my $1 million lineup this week.
I am confident that even if you don't win $1 million, I'm confident that you will be a richer man by the end of the day.
Yeah, I honestly, this is probably my favorite lineup in about 2 months.
Okay. Okay. I'll give you mine, and it not surprisingly begins and ends with a Josh Rosen stack. So I have Mr. Rosen as my quarterback. As we've been talking, I will give you some credit here. I've pivoted off Barkley, not a huge pivot. It's not a big pivot, but I've put Zeke in my lineup because I'm picturing that Falcons defense, just that paper mache defense, just getting torched. So
Just make sure you have
Zeke,
a big bowl of chili or cereal. You'll be eating that stuff all game long while he's running up and down the field.
absolutely. So Rosen, my running backs, Zeke, David Johnson to complete that Rosen stack. Receivers, sticking in Dallas, unbelievable. Amari, I'm putting a lot of faith in your boy Dak, so it better pay off. And Fitzgerald, to go along, he's gonna be the three little prong there in the Arizona stack. T.Y. Hilton is my third receiver to be that big blow up T.Y. Hilton game that we all anticipate this season, and O.J. Howard at tight end. Defense is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the flex spot is going to be Eric Ebron, um, Jared Cook, or potentially um, DJ Moore. That's who is going to be in that flex spot.
DJ Moore
So
for me.
DJ Moore against the Lions, who
I have a hard time playing Ebron off of that massive game with 3 touchdowns against a Titans team that has yet to allow a touchdown. And maybe they do. And maybe it's Ebron. Maybe Doyle gets 6 for 75, no touchdowns, and we're expecting Ebron to score. But yeah,
I know he's that game, but who are we kidding? Like he just keeps scoring touchdowns. So
yeah,
as much as
they were saying that he needs like 2 more touchdowns. I think JJ Zacharyson tweeted him out. 2 more touchdowns to eclipse his whole career with the Lions, and like one more to beat his college career, and that's how impressive he's been this year. So,
well,
yeah,
and that's one thing I will say this, Kyle, and not that locally, that's been somewhat of a storyline is how unproductive he was here in Detroit with Stafford, and now all of a sudden he's like this big weapon, and it's not looking good. Let me
Yeah,
just say. So,
yeah.
yep, yep. Another thing.
Well, I like where your squad's at. You definitely have upside. If Amari Cooper and T.Y. Hilton go off, I feel like that line will do very very well. Obviously, it could go poorly too if both those guys struggle, but I don't anticipate that. I also have visions of a T-shirt that says Josh Rosen stack with Rosen, Kirk, David Johnson, and Larry Fitzgerald in like a totem pole type thing. So I might be going on like custom ink or something and creating that over the weekend. So if any of our listeners want to potentially get one of those, send me a DM at Notorious KRO. Hit me up on Twitter. I could see if that's something we might be able to put together. Even if not just for us, Bobby. I think a shirt that says Josh Rosenstack, I think is a necessary part of doing this show all season long.
I may paint my face with like a little number and his little number on my cheek this Sunday. So
Yeah,
yeah,
wait, I think you'd have to go like DJ on one side and Rosen on the other, and yeah, I don't know how you would pick just two or three players. I think might have to put the whole squad on your face.
at this point it's gotten to that point. So
Josh Rosenstack, the podcast. That's what we're here for. Uh, Bobby, this is fun as always. Obviously, if you are interested in sports betting, make sure you check out the Angle of Pursuit Sports Betting podcast. We talk NFL lines, we talk some college, as well as just have a good time. And I give Bobby relationship advice. So, it's just good times all around. But for the real Bobby Adcock, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys down the road.
good luck, guys.